What's up, Marty Cookies? Today I'm gonna be helping you craft a resume that will hopefully get you a job in animation studio or game design studio or any relevant industries. Let's go. Okay, so I got my Canva here and we're gonna talk about and start getting to creating a resume for some person as an example. I could use myself here, but the thing is, because I am a production manager, so my job is like creative producer, production manager. So it's a little bit different from artists, and therefore some categories are gonna be different. And I feel like advice would be better used if I use an artist as an example for you guys. However, if you do want me to make more videos about like production management and things like that, also let me know in the comments below, because I've got the knowledge, the experience, and I would be happy to share it with you if you're interested. Now, before we begin, I want to mention two things. First of all, the way resumes work now are quite different from what it used to be back in the day. Right now, one thing that you need to consider when you're making a resume is to make them ATS compliant. These days, technologies are changing, the way people work is changing, and of course, busy companies, especially big ones, are now using machines for a lot of things, including scanning resumes. So ATS is Applicant Tracking System, which is basically a computer that scans all of the resumes that are coming in. So the way that system works right now is that first, when you send out your resume, first, it goes through a computer, and only once it passes the computer stage does it get to actual HR human who will look at it and decide whether or not you're worthy of an interview and if they're even gonna consider you. And because we're artists in the creative field, we tend to make creative resumes, not considering that most of those resumes will probably never make it to HR just because it doesn't pass the ATS. And so first of all, we want to make sure that we make our resume ATS compliant so that it will actually get to the human. Now, if you really want to make a creative resume, you can still do it. But what I would say is do not apply with this resume online. Keep this resume so that you can hand it to people when you meet them on different events or like job interviews, things like that. But keep it for those occasions only, because ATS will probably scan them out and nobody will ever actually see your beautiful creative resume. And if you go online and search for ATS friendly resume, you're gonna find a bunch of different templates that are gonna help you formatting your resume. And honestly, you can totally use them. I'm not opposed to using them. The reason I wanna use Canva is just because I wanna walk you through every single step. And also because this way we can look at some options where you can have some design as well. But even if you use ATS templates that you either buy or get a free one, this advice is still valid, because it's not just about the advice, it's about what you put in the resume. And it will still apply even if you're using a template. And also, you guys, stick to the end, because in the end, I'm gonna share with you one little tip that helped me get multiple jobs and job offers, and some of my friends who I shared it with. So stick around, it might actually be a game changer for you. Now, regardless whether you're using a ATS template resume or Canva or whatever it is you use, I used to use Photoshop for that. Now I use Canva because, oh my God, Canva make it so much easier for us. I love it. So now let's talk about the components of successful resume. Number one, you gotta try to keep it one page long. I know that this topic has been quite debatable in the last few years, but the reason it is debatable because employers want to see experienced workers and things like that. But if you're watching this video, there is a good chance that you haven't had that much experience in the industry, which is not a problem. That's what we're here for. But it also means that you shouldn't listen to those who say, oh, you need a 2-page resume to showcase all of your experience in the world. No, we're only gonna focus on the relevant experience to the job, depending on what position you're applying, and it's gonna vary. But if you've been, I don't know, a barista at Starbucks and now you wanna apply for animation company, this experience is not really gonna be relevant unless the position that you're applying for is relevant. For example, if you are applying for an entry job position like a runner or some kind of assistant, then it could be still relevant because it shows your customer support skills, your social skills, things like that. But if you're applying for the artist position, say a entry position as a 3D modeler or I don't know, PA or things like that, I would recommend to stick with industry relevant experience. Now, if you're fresh out of college, if you haven't had any relevant experience, that's okay too. Because the paradox of the industry now is that in order to get a job, you need experience. So basically you need experience to get experience, which is bunkers. And so in this case, what I recommend you do is, if you ever had any commissions done, any work done that is relevant to art industry. For example, maybe you've illustrated a book or somebody ordered a commission from you. That is still counts as a work experience. It counts as a freelance work experience. So you can also add it there, and it's still more relevant to your job compared to, say, like being a barista in Starbucks. Not that I'm trying to pick on baristas in Starbucks, you guys. This is just the most common example. So for that reason, we're gonna stick to one page. Let's go to Canva. We've opened our file, and now we're just gonna pick a template. You don't have to pick a template. You can make it on your own. Like I've mentioned before, you can even use one of those ATS templates. That's fine too. We're just gonna use Canva. And the way I like to do things, and what I've noticed a lot of employers also like, so I recommend it for you, is having stuff to the left rather than to the right. So you see how on my screen, some of these are more aiming towards right. That's not what we're gonna do. We're gonna pick something like this where information is towards left side, or like here. Now, whether you want to include your photo or not is entirely your choice. You don't have to, because I've had success with 2 different resumes, in one of which I had a photo and I had a design like this. And the other one, it was a very straightforward, very black and white resume, nothing extra, just straight to the point, no photos included, nothing like that. So both formats actually work. It's honestly more about you and what you want to do. You can even have both and see, depending on the companies that you apply, which one would work best for which. Because usually big corporations, big companies, they tend to like simplicity, in my opinion, whereas smaller companies, they will prefer a personal touch. But that's not necessarily the case for every single company. So, you know, you do you, maybe even make 1 or 2 resumes. You can even have one with ATS template and the other one that you make with your own design. So let's go to Canva, pick a template to save some time. So like, I like this one because it is simple enough. It kind of reminds me one of mine. So this is not bad. Let's see. Because all of these, actually my older resume kind of looked like this, except it was more colorful. Like it had all of those fancy things. And it's not a bad thing. Actually, in terms of design, the most important thing here is to make sure that all of the important points stand out. So after it passes the machine and when an actual recruiter looks at it, they look, okay, what is their skills? Okay, bam, this. Okay, good. What is their work experience? So basically you want to make it as easily scannable for human eye as possible in terms of design. That's why we don't want to add any extra elements, any flowers on top or anything like that. I would advise against putting any of your art on it too, like your signature or your art things. No, I've done that before. It doesn't work. If anything, it only hurts you. So try to stick to simplicity. Even if you are using a creative design, make sure it is very comfortable for a human eye to scan. And of course, if you do go for the creative look, you need to make sure that your composition is on point, your colors are on point, all of these things, your contrast, everything is well placed, because you are a creative. And if you're applying for a job and your resume looks unprofessional or out of composition and things like that, that's not a good look. Because for employer, immediately what it says is, okay, this person is applying for, I don't know, concept artist position, and they can't even put their resume in the proper composition. That's a red flag. So be careful, you guys, when you choose a template, or if you make your own design, be careful with those things. So this is still good because you can clearly see the education, contact, like all of those things. I would change categories though. We will talk about this next component in a bit, because the order that she has it in is not exactly the order I would suggest you to go for. I wish those things were around when I was making resume. I had to figure it all out on my own. It was not fun. But luckily, guys, now you have those tools and YouTube videos that tell you how to do shit, so it's awesome. Like, this is not bad too. I would say a little bit overdid it with the design. Again, I just want to show you some of the templates to kind of get a sense of what's too much and what's not. I would say try to keep it simple. Like this is a good fit. Let's maybe stick with this. This is pretty good. This is pretty good if you want to go with a picture option. Another one I would recommend if you don't want to use a picture would be something like this. This is also good. So you see how the designs I picked, they're clearly divided. Especially I personally like it if it's divided with a color, because again, it is easier to scan with a human eye. So those two examples are pretty good, but you can go even simpler and do something like this. As long as there is a division, it's already good. So let's say I'm just gonna keep 3 of these and just choose one. I'm just gonna go with this first one for this example so that we can just go through the actual things that you want to put in your resume. So right off the bat, next component that is important for you to attract human that will be looking at your resume is telling a story. So we tend to think of resume as this one list that tells you a short bit of information, but very few people realize that with your resume, you still need to tell a story. And the first thing that you need to figure out is, what is your superpower? I'm going to use myself as an example. So for example, as a creative producer, production manager, one of my superpowers were always problem solving, because that's what I do. I solve problems on the go in my job because they come up every single day and they're just gonna keep on coming and I'm ready for them. So my whole story when I write a resume is that I'm a problem solver. And the second part is that because I'm a production manager, but I am educated and skilled in doing all of the pre-production, production, and post-production steps. So I am actually capable, and I'm not saying I'm great at it to the point to take the artist's job, but I'm just saying that I am capable and knowledgeable enough to do the designs, to do the script, to do the 3D modeling, rigging, all of those things, texturing, editing, whatever needs to be done. I can do all of those steps. Even if I'm not great at it, this just shows that I know how this stuff works. I know the software, I'm knowledgeable in all of those things. So as a production manager, I can be much better fit and I can be much better at solving problems when they come to me. So that's my story. For example, if you are a 3D modeler, right? Or if you are a concept artist, you need to have a thing that helps you stand out. For example, if you are extremely quick, so whatever you do, you need to figure out what is your ultimate superpower and what kind of story you want to tell with your resume. It will also go for your cover letter. So this goes kind of like a package. If you need a cover letter, this will also go for a cover letter. So this will be like a package. So you kind of need to decide what are your strongest points. So for example, if you are a concept artist and you have a strong foundation, you are skilled in many different softwares. These are all of the things that you want to put in your story, so that the employer see that first of all, you are adaptable. You can learn softwares on a go. You're willing to learn. If they need you to adapt your skills, if they need to change software and the way they do things, they need to see that you're adaptable enough. So your thing could be like, I'm highly skilled, I'm adaptable. So if you have strong fundamental skills, that's something that you can also feature, because this will tell employer, I have a strong fundamentals, and that means I can build on top of that. So whatever you throw at me, I'm ready to take the task. I can use and adapt to different technologies. I think as artists, it is very important to be adaptable and quick study. So that's something that you might want to consider for your feature as well. And we will talk more about telling the story as we go through this resume, because that's basically what you're going to do throughout. And that's going to help you picking the skills, picking the things that you want to put in there. So that's why I wanted to bring it up first. Now let's look at this resume and talk about order that I recommend that you follow. Okay, so right off the bat, if you choose to have your image in the resume, make sure it's a professional looking image, so it can be you working, with a nice lighting and things like that. Try to avoid selfies, party photos, and things like this, because it just looks unprofessional and I feel like it's obvious. I just want to put it out there, so I've said it. Okay, so let's say our fictional, let's go with a fictional person. Say it's Kelly Smith. So this is Kelly. So here you want to put a position that you're trying to apply to, or relevant position that you're trying to apply to. I would even recommend every time when you apply for a job, especially if it's the one important for you, make sure that your resume complies and goes well with what they're asking for. So when you apply for a job, especially when it's online, they will list things that are required of you. They will list things that they're looking in a candidate. So basically, they're telling you what they want to hear. So if those things really apply to you, you should take them and put it in your resume in the order that I'm suggesting. So let's say Kelly is a visual development artist. Right off the bat, you guys, in here, what I'm seeing is that it's a little bit hard to read some of those things. If you're confused and you don't know what to do, use Helvetica because it would be appreciated by employers. People know that font and it's respected across all of the industries, so it's the safest way to go, especially in creative careers like ours, just because design matters. In our case, you know, your ability to design something matters just because we are creative and we are expected to have that knowledge and that skill. Okay, so she is applying for visual development artist position, right? In the order we go like this too. So first is going to be profile. In here we're going to have experience. Now she has her contact right under her picture, and I would recommend using the space differently, especially since we have some space over here. What I would recommend you do is take the contact information and move it over here, right under the name. And also because oftentimes employers, when they look on the left, they're expecting to see your skills, your education, and things like that, kind of like features about you. So contact information is better to keep next to your name, as close to your name as possible. It is still okay to have it this way, but I would advise you to use this space to feature your skills instead. You don't even actually have to say phone or address. You can just put them in because it's implied. And you want to have your email. I don't know why they don't stay email here. If anything, email is more important than your address because you can relocate. So email, then phone number, then address, and then website. By now, you should know that you should have a website with your portfolio. And if you want to learn more about it and how to create one, things like that, I can make a video about it. Just let me know in the comments below. Okay, so now that we have her contact information, I know I'm getting a little bit nitpicky here. It's just because I want to showcase that, you know, it is important to keep the composition well established. It is important that it's easy to read for a human eye. So next, in here, I would put her skills. In our case, I would even go as far as, because she has skills right here, but actually this is a space I would usually use for education instead. So I'm gonna move the pro skills and swap it with education. Because education is good to have, but to be honest, especially in our field, this is the last thing that they look at. They wanna know that you are capable, they want to know your skills, and they also want to know the softwares that you can use. So I would say skills first, then software. Whatever you use, you're gonna have to look for ATS friendly keywords, because we still have to pass the machine first to get to the human that will appreciate all of the work that you put in the resume. So in order to find the right ATS friendly keywords for you, you're gonna have to Google and look for it in terms of your profession. So for example, if you are a 3D modeler, if you're an artist, you might need to try and type it in Google and see what comes up, because it doesn't always show exactly the art industry. I think a lot of resources are still lacking when it comes to artists and our industry, because, you know, it's not as common as say when engineers are looking for work, but you can still find something that fits. Even if you can't find your role, or say, for example, you are, again, a 3D modeler, and you can't find a ATS-friendly keywords for 3D modeler, there are still some basic keywords that are important for the recruiter, no matter what role you're looking for. For artists, usually the keywords that really make it or break it are the software that you use and the skills that you have. So for example, you have illustrating skills or designing skills, collaboration, illustration design, that's a skill. And the reason I personally like to separate skills and software is because in our field, we tend to use a lot of different softwares, which is not necessarily the same thing as our skills. So you might be proficient in team, I don't know, you might be proficient in problem solving, teamwork, you have a basic fundamental skills, designing skills, things like that, which is not the same as the knowledge of software that you have. You can still keep it all under the skills if you don't have enough. But in my case, because I use a lot of different softwares for my work and I have skills I need to featuring as well, I like to separate them in two. You can separate them in two. If you don't want to do that, that's fine as well. There is one more thing that you should feature though, if you have it, and that is languages. I would say if you speak more than one language, you definitely need to put it on your resume. So in my case, I speak 4. So I would definitely put it in, because no matter the kind of job you're applying for, knowing multiple languages always goes a long way. So if you can speak multiple languages, definitely put it in. Again, you don't have to separate software from skills like I do here. It just depends on how many skills you actually have. So if you don't have enough of different software and skills to put it in 2 columns, you can just put it all in one under skills. That's fine. It's just something that I like to separate because I have a lot in both columns and they are not necessarily the same thing. We're gonna have education here. And this is where our ATS keywords are gonna come to play soon. Like I mentioned, let's add languages to it. For example, she can speak English and Spanish. I don't know. That's just an example. In my case, I actually speak Russian, Chinese, English, and Kazakh, but Spanish is not one of them yet. And personally, when I was looking for jobs in the studios, languages did come to play, and I've noticed that even during the interviews, employers noticed the knowledge of languages and they kind of paid attention to that. That's why I say it is a good idea to put it on your resume because a lot of times it counts. Because she is a visual development artist, obviously, first thing the employer is gonna look at is her fundamentals, that she actually knows her stuff, which will come through in a portfolio, but it's still nice to have. And I would say let's go with traditional fine art skills. Then we're gonna list some other visual development artists expected skills. You can even search for them in ATS keywords or resume keywords online as well. I'm just gonna use some basic ones like digital illustration, character design, or environment design, whatever you do, can be both. It is good to be either character design or environment design oriented though. So here I'm just gonna put character design. After you've listed your main professional skills, you wanna go in and include some human skills like a quick learner. Let's see, some keywords. Yeah, collaboration, graphic design, or illustration design that actually can work. So you want to make sure you research the keywords as well because, again, you want to pass by the machine first. And like I've mentioned, whenever recruiters list what they're expecting of the applicant, you really should pay attention and make sure that those words are in your resume because that will also go for the ATS scanning machine. They will actually have the same keywords that employers use to help them find the best candidates. So if you take those keywords and apply into your resume, you have a higher chance of getting through to an actual human who will actually look at your resume, see your story and see your potential and hopefully get you an interview. Quick learner, collaboration, or like a team player. You can research those keywords as well. And again, first thing that you want to do is look at the employer requirements because those keywords would be much more useful than the ones that you fish out of internet. But if you just want to start with something and you don't necessarily have a position you're applying for yet, you can just go with a general keywords that you find online and then adjust it as you go whenever you apply for a position. I would even say if you can, try to make a new resume for every job that you apply to, or at least for the most important ones for you that you apply to, so that you're a best candidate for them you can be. Also, English is not my first language, as you've noticed. If you ran out of your professional skills and artist skills, here you can continue putting in your technical skills. Then you can put in Adobe Photoshop, or I like to put in Adobe Creative Suite because I use multiple Adobe products. But sometimes you still want to put both, even if you put Adobe Creative Suite, because again, this will increase your chances of going through the ATS. So if you have enough skills here to fill this space, you can go into software and put the software over there. So I would say Microsoft Office. It is also a good idea to think about all of the different softwares that you use that are relevant to the industry. So for example, if you are using Procreate for your personal work, you can still put it in there because it will tell employer that you can use and learn multiple different softwares, which is a plus, especially in the case if they want to switch up the things. You want to feature your ability to be adaptable and a quick study. So if you use multiple software, you should put it in there. But you need to make sure that you can actually use the software, because during the interview, if you say that you're using, I don't know, say Nuke or Houdini, and then throughout the questions they realize you don't actually know what you're talking about, that's going to be a problem. That's not going to look good. So make sure that you're also truthful with this. For example, some concept artists, viz dev artists, they are also familiar with animation tools. So for example, a Toon Boom, Storyboard Pro, and things like that, you can also put it in there. Another tip, if you've been using Shotgun or ShotGrid, I recommend putting it in your resume, because a lot of companies and big studios use ShotGrid, that is now called. And this will tell them that you already know how to use that tool. And that's a tool that all of the artists are required to use in some companies. So if you've used it before, if you know how to work at it, put it in your resume, because it will tell a lot to your employer. But again, only put it in there if you actually know how to use the software. If you don't, it's okay. They will teach you how to use it, because again, you don't want to be caught in a lie. So just make sure you're honest and truthful about that. So let's say we put all of our skills here. We got our education over here. There you go. There's a way to lock layer. Okay, now it's not gonna move. Yeah, so after that, you can just kind of polish the look of your resume here. So far, we've only been working on your left side. We haven't even gotten to the right side yet. And also, if you have a little bit of space down here, you can also add your additional achievements. So for example, if you had an exhibition or if you got some awards, you can add it over here on the left. You can also do it on the right, but I would recommend saving all of the right space you can to put your job experience. But if you don't have enough job experience, by all means, you can put it on the right. So if you have any achievements that are relevant to the industry, make sure to put them in. So if you won some competitions, you got some awards, you had exhibitions, things like that, it will go a long way. So make sure to add it in there. Now for your profile. So in this part, you want to tell a story again. Tell them about yourself. Try to use professional language when you do. Again, it's best practice to go and actually look at what the employer is looking for, so that in your description, you're basically telling them, look, I'm the candidate that you're looking for. I am this proficient and this quick study and this great at fundamental skills and things like that. So pay attention to what they're asking of you. But for now, we're just gonna add something like, say, results oriented. So results oriented concept artist with, let's say, an excellent work ethic and adaptability. There you go. So this could be it. Like, this is very generic and very basic. You want to make sure that you're telling your own story. And here I was just basically describing a proficient, skilled and skilled in their fundamentals concept artist. And here you're gonna put your experience. So once this profile part is done, and again, always look at what recruiter is looking for. If you're not necessarily applying for their job yet and you just want to have something in place, you can look at some of the bigger companies, or like your dream companies that are looking for employees, and see what they're looking for so that you can already have it in your resume. Then for experience, it is pretty straightforward. You don't necessarily have to have a huge paragraph after every single entry job. You can put in like time, company, where you've been working in. You don't necessarily need to put in the full address either. You can just put in a city or country, depending on if you're working internationally or not. You don't need the full address and your job position. And then a short description of what you have done. I would even say, instead of putting it in a paragraph like this, you can have it as bullet points. So for example, if you worked at this company, you've helped them achieve this and create this designs and develop this concept, things like that, put it in a bullet points instead. Another thing is, if you haven't worked in a company yet, or you've only worked in jobs that are not related to the industry, is okay. What you can do is, if you have any freelance experience, say you work on Upwork and you've had some freelance success there, you can put it in there. If you had some other jobs, let's say back to my favorite Starbucks barista. If you worked as a Starbucks barista, you can still find a way to use it in your resume. So if you don't have much of work experience, what you can do is put in a Starbucks barista from here to there for that period of time in that city, and then in your job description, just say what you've been doing. So for example, if you were a barista, then you can say that you've been collaborating with your coworkers, you've been helping customers and using your team working skills, team player skills to achieve the best result. So basically, you turn this Starbucks barista position into something that they can work with. In terms of featuring your collaborative skills, you probably also had to learn how to operate a machine, which goes for quick study, right? So you can use it like this and feature all of the advantages and things that you can do for the company, even if it's not relevant to the industry. And of course, lastly, if you don't have any experience, I suggest you go get some. Basically, what you can do is apply for some internships, because the problem is a lot of times it is hard to get a job in the big studios if you don't have an actual experience. It's a paradox. You need experience to get experience. So you might want to look for internships, even if they're unpaid, for at least a short period of time, so that you have something to put in your resume. You might want to consider doing some freelance work. Even if it's some work that you do for yourself, you still need to have something out there so that you can put in your resume. You can also look for companies that have different educational and like internship programs. For example, my company, Insomnia Production, we have an educational program like that, where we have artists applying with their resumes, and if they're picked, they go into our young artist educational program. And then whenever we get like a non-profit, low budget project, we use that project to help educate them. So then they are working for us, and there's not a big pay, but at least this way they get experience. And again, because this is a non-profit project, so it's more about teaching them rather than getting anything for the company. But the whole reason we have this in place is because when I was looking for a job, what I've encountered was that I needed experience to get experience. So I wanted to give back to the community, and that's what we did. So there are companies out there that also do that. So you can research that and maybe participate in those programs or find internships on Indeed and other websites like that. Also, if you have relatives or close friends, somebody who owns a business, a company, things like that, you can go and do internship for them, or even do some part-time as long as it's relevant to your industry. Because your goal here is to get as much experience as possible, so that by the time this resume gets to the studio, they can see that you have already done something. And lastly, like I mentioned, after you have your work experience, if you still have some area, you can put your achievements, which is a good little cherry on top. You can put it either in the space right here on the left or over here on the right. It doesn't really matter, depending on how your space looks like. So this is an example of a resume for Kelly. Now, this is your resume. I hope it's gonna be helpful. And as promised, let's get to the tip that I've talked about. So we've just talked about having a work experience. And one thing that I've learned is that recommendations go a long, long way. So if you can get as many recommendations as possible, try and get them, especially if you have a relevant work experience. And another thing I strongly, strongly recommend for you to do is when you get those recommendations, make sure to ask those people to write them on your LinkedIn, because a lot of employers look in your LinkedIn profile when they're searching for you. Even if they found you through something else, they still have a tendency to look at your LinkedIn. And if they see those recommendations from those people on your LinkedIn, it will feel legit, because those are their actual profiles. So this is some kind of verification that those people actually wrote those things. So make sure to do all you can to get those recommendations on your LinkedIn. Once you have them, you can always put them on your website, on your document, because you already have those recommendations written with those people. But this way, if it's on your LinkedIn, you are verified. People that will be looking at your LinkedIn will see that those are actual people that you said recommended you. And they actually have their pages there, so that the recruiter can see, okay, who is that person who is recommending you. So it's a great way to show that you are reliable, that people are actually recommending you, and have a proof for that. This little tip has helped me so much. And not just me, it helped multiple of my friends who've been looking for jobs in the industry. So I highly recommend it for you. Try to get it done. Try to get those recommendations. And if you do, you are golden. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys like this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, if this worked for you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. I've got many useful career videos coming out and interviews, so make sure to subscribe. And if you want to know how to get a concept artist job, I have a video over here for you. So thank you guys, and I will see you next time.